Yeah, I should win just because you had the Timberwolves in the 8th seed.
Vasilevsky's been playing really well, and the Lightning have a great offense.
Yeah, it was a tremendous shot, and I've come to expect it from LeBron, who's become one of the clutchest players in NBA history as of recently.
So I have him going off one night, but I think he's just going to get tired. So that's why the Nets winning in 5.
I would say I wish the best for the Red Sox, but as a Yankees fan, that's really hard for me to do.
The biggest addition to me is Jalen Brunson.
Both teams that beat the Rangers are rebuilding faster than the Rangers.
Why'd you have to name them? Like, seriously. Thanks, man. To me, those top 2 starters are Lucas Gaelito and Lance Flynn.
Kaprizov and the rest of this crew. Jordan Greenway, who doesn't get enough props. He definitely is somebody who needs to be mentioned more. I definitely think it's going to be a great series, and I'm interested to see how much Kaprizov can impact the game as a rookie.
How is Joe Burrow going to get the ball to them if his butt is already on the ground when he finally decides who to throw to?
Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers, and that's all I have to say. He's still a top 5 quarterback in this league, and there's nothing really anyone can do about it.
All I could think of was Dame.
I don't think they will. If they don't have Anthony Davis, I'm saying it right now, if Anthony Davis is out for the playoffs, they don't make it out of the first round.
And then I want to talk about the Fernando Tatis extension, because that really surprised me. Because he's so young.
The Hurricanes just have too much. They're probably the most complete team this year, and I anticipate them winning.
You know what this means, Bengals. Take the nice one. Do not let what happened to Andrew Luck happen to Joe Burrow.
Clippers versus the Nets. Who would have thought 5 years ago that the Clippers and Nets would be facing in the finals?
But I have the Sixers versus Jazz.
Crazy. And for the fans at home, for the listeners at home.
Hello, I'm Cy Mendenhall, and you're listening to Outsiders Opinions with Kevin and Austin.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to our 68th episode. Make sure to check out our previous episode where we did an MLB Power Rankings. Shout out to Kyle Muller as he played well in his first inning, or first time starting a game. And then also to switch it up to hockey, the Goalie Guild just tweeted about Robin Lehner's chapter in The Power Within 2, which is written by the guest we had, who is the founder of the Goalie Guild and wrote that book. And make sure to check out that interview. And now for an updated, sadly I have to do this because Austin is up by 8. The Bucks and Nets series keeps me in it a little bit, or just less. I have a few more points, even though I'm still losing. And then updated on the scoring. So the first round was 2 points, right team, 1 point for the correct amount of games. Second round, since it's deeper, we get an extra point so you get 3 points for the right team, but still 1 point for the correct amount of games. Austin has a total of 22. And I have a total of 14. So, Austin, congrats on winning it so far. You will be the presumable winner unless I make a miraculous comeback, but we'll see. What are your thoughts on the second round as we start with Suns versus Nuggets?
Wow. I did not expect a sweep, but I did expect a quick series. I had the Suns in 5 games. And I do believe that the Nuggets could have pulled that one out, Game 4, if Jokic wasn't, in my opinion, wrongly ejected. However, the Suns were just a better team. Without Jamal Murray and without a healthy Will Barton, even though Will Barton did play, there was no way the Suns were going to end up losing this series. Chris Paul played outstanding in almost all of the games during the series, and Devin Booker really showed his worth as a scorer and as a leader for this young team. Cam Payne and Cam Johnson off the bench were exceptional, and Jay Crowder's ability to guard people without fouling and his experience playing in the finals last year has really showed through to this team. The Nuggets will be back next year. Losing Jeremy Grant in the offseason, obviously losing Jamal Murray during the season, and then, like I mentioned before, not having a healthy Will Barton definitely hindered this team. Jokic deserves to be MVP and had an amazing season. However, going against such a formidable opponent, he just could not will them to victory. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, you mentioned a lot of them. Michael Porter Jr. also had his back was tight, and ever since that information was disclosed, you could tell how he wasn't really hitting his shots like he did in the earlier series, and that they said it did not relate to the two back surgeries he had, which caused him to fall in the draft. But I definitely agree. Will Barton and then oh my gosh, Jamal Murray really hurt them. And then Aiton played really well, guarding Jokic. And the first game, he was able to score similar points to the points that Jokic was scoring. And then just you mentioned Jay Crowder, Chris Paul. Campaign is an incredible story, but Chris Paul and Jay Crowder were two of the main free agents this year, and it just goes to show why James Jones has deserves that Executive of the Year. So it's a great job bringing Chris Paul and Jay Crowder, and it's sad we couldn't see Chris Paul in Game 1 of the conference finals. But any final thoughts before we move on?
Yeah, I'd just like to mention that people were questioning the Chris Paul deal when it first went through because of the contract. His contract was had a lot of money, and it seemed like it was going to be a hard thing to deal with. However, I mean, they're really coming through. He's such a great leader. He's made it to the conference finals before. And like you mentioned, Jay Crowder. I believe he's the only player on this team that's been to a finals or made a finals appearance. Last year, he did it with the Miami Heat. But yeah, they signed him as a free agent. James Jones, someone who's been to 7 finals, definitely knows how uh, important having a winning nature is, and he tried to instill that into his players. And adding a player who's been there before, not won a finals, but has experienced a good series against the Lakers last year, was definitely an important addition. And yeah, it's great to see that working out.
Yeah, and to your point about James Paul contract, the numbers were 4 years, 159 million. The average salary was around it was 39,932 thousand. So you can round up basically to 40 million. He's making 44 right now. And then a key thing is he does have a player option for this offseason, but from what I've heard, and that means Woj, Shams, and Twitter, verifiable Twitter, it looks like he's going to decline that player option, and someone is going to give him the next thing I think that is new from the players union is around 3 years and 100 million. So that's a very interesting thing that perplexes him. I know you're giving me some wide eyes. So what do you think of that just offhand?
Yeah, I mean, with Chris Paul's injury history and his inability to stay on the court, it's tough for me seeing him getting that deal. We'll have to see what happens, especially with the contracts that other players are getting, especially young players. Um, it's going to be hard for a quality team to offer him those numbers. Another crazy thing I wanted to mention, just a fun fact for you out there. Jay Crowder was a part of the trade the Mavs made to acquire Dwight Powell and Rajon Rondo. So that's just an interesting part of history that I still think has some impact now, as Dwight Powell's still playing for the Mavs and they didn't move on.
So
So
once again, it's always the second player that's notable for outside of the big name player. You got Rajon Rondo. We all know how that went. Then you have KP, Tim Hardaway, and then we have Redick. So interesting. And yeah, that makes me feel much better about Donnie Nelson not being here and seeing Seth Curry just hit billions of threes. However, we'll get to that soon. But first, let's talk about Clippers versus Jazz. We're talking about great leads in our standings. The Jazz gave up such a huge lead, and I believe it's the first time in history someone down 0-2 in the first and second round wins the round. I believe the Batum coming in for Zubac came in Game 3 of the Mavs, and then in Game 3 of the Jazz, and that's when they decided to go small. So, and that really was the downfall because Rudy Gobert wasn't able to stay in the paint, and he was exposed, trying to go outside, and they kept flipping it to whoever. It was usually Batum, but also Man. He was incredible as well. Had in his 39 points in the Game 6. And then Paul George really changing the narrative about how he plays in the playoffs. Last year, um, he got the name Pandemic P. That's now gone to Porzingis, and now Paul George has really stepped up in Kawhi Leonard's absence, and it really shows how it's just he's changing the narrative, and it will. I'm wondering how it will change if he goes to a conference finals. But what are your thoughts on this series?
Yeah, I think we've really been shown how important it is to play multiple players and changing up your lineup. Um, Ty Lue isn't the greatest of coaches in my eyes, and he's not one of my favorite coaches in the league. However, I do have to give credit where credit's due. He's done a great job in the past couple of series realizing something's not working. And he looks at it and he's like, I got to do something. And he does something, and sometimes that's not going to work. Sometimes you try something new and it does even worse, or maybe it's not enough to push yourself over the top. But in both these last two series, it has been enough, and it's worked out. Terrence Mann being put in for Patrick Beverly, Nick Batum being put out for Zubac. Both of those things were essential. And while they're still giving minutes to those two other guys, I think that's another important part of this. They're not completely ostracizing those guys out of the rotation. Some coaches are like, okay, this isn't going to work. We're going to go all in this way. Tyler's like, no, we know these players are veteran players. Patrick Beverly has played in a lot of series, a very important series, and Zubac's been with the team for a while. So he knows it's important to get those guys in to play their minutes so that they can still have a good voice in the locker room. However, they know the most important minutes need to go to Nick Batum and Terrence Mann when those guys are on the court. It seems like they're doing very well. So, especially with injuries to guys like Kawhi and Serge Ibaka, you're going to have more guys other than Paul George step up. And while Paul George has played pretty well, especially during this series for the majority of the games, I know Game 4 he didn't play all that well, but Game 5 he had one of the best games of his playoff career. It's really showed how important it is to have guys around that core so that if someone gets hurt, they can still deal with it. And this is why I don't really understand the excuses with injuries. Um, you'll hear fans of teams be like, "Oh, this player got hurt. We can't do it anymore. We're gonna lose." Or after they lose, they make excuses for why they lost with, "Oh, this player got hurt. This player got hurt. This player got hurt." Everybody's gonna deal with injuries. Everybody's gonna deal with players being out for a number of games. It's just a mentality in the locker room, and I do believe that's why they made it so far. The Clippers were a team I didn't see making it as far as they did if Kawhi had gotten hurt. If you had told me before the playoffs, well, Kawhi's out second round versus Jazz, I would probably not have picked them to go to the finals like I did. However, that resiliency is impressive, and I do think the voices in the locker room that have been there before, like Serge Ibaka, who's won a championship, Kawhi, who's won a championship, those guys are very loud in the locker room while they're out and being comforting, but uh, enforcing players in the locker room to help the players that are playing on the court play their best basketball.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. And the role players have really stepped up. Marcus Morris was hitting threes until he got injured. Reggie Jackson, he's been incredible. It's just unbelievable to see him take those shots, and he gets the swish. It's really incredible. Any final thoughts before we move on to Bucks versus Nets?
No, it was a great series. It's obviously how I predicted it. I believe I had Clippers in 7. Let me go back and check real quick.
I believe you got that perfect. You had Clippers.
Oh, I did. We need to add one more point because
Okay,
I
gotcha.
didn't say I had it perfect. I thought it was. Oh, that's right. It did go 6. Yeah, I had Clippers in 6. That is how I predicted. But obviously not with the injuries that occurred. I obviously did not expect Serge Ibaka and Kawhi to be out for important games during the series. So I was surprised, and I have to give props to Ty Lue as he definitely, I think, saved his job making it further than Doc Rivers, who got fired last year.
Yeah, we'll get to that in the ending for Atlanta versus Philly. But a game that I got perfect was Bucks versus Nets in 7. And I know we talked about injuries. Even if Harden doesn't come back this series, and if Kyrie stays healthy, I think it's over. And he got injured in Game 4, correct, Kyrie, or is it Game 5?
He
Okay.
got hurt in Game 4, I believe.
Okay, so then it's probably a 5 game series of Kyrie, and just 2 years and a couple days is how long it's been since KD tore his Achilles, and he looks just incredible. And if it was only a few inches away from the 3-point line, the narratives would be totally different. But a great job from Giannis. He was making some threes, but you said the key to the series, if for the Bucks, would be Chris Middleton. I said Drew Holiday. They really didn't play well in the game 7 until Holiday in the very end, and Middleton got better. But it's something that we'll have to see how they rebound from this tough series. What are your thoughts on this series?
Yeah, but I do believe that Chris Middleton was a much better player throughout the series. If we look through most of the games, the majority of them, Chris Middleton was the guy making all the clutch shots, shooting on the getting on the big buckets. I know Chris Middleton scored 38 in that Game 6 win. He played very impressive in that game, while Giannis only had 30. And that was a game that Drew Holiday shot 1 of 8 from 1 of 8 or 1 for 10, 1 for 10 I think from 3. You can check up on that. He shot really bad from 3 in Game 6, and then in Game 7 he continues that performance. Except at the end of the game, he started to play better, and I do have to give props to Drew Holiday for getting over that mental hurdle and shooting better. I know for a fact, you don't even have to fact check this, that Chris Middleton had more points, and I bet he shot better from the field and from 3. But
Yeah, definitely.
And I bet he had a double-double too, as he's been grabbing a ton of rebounds. I also know for a fact that Chris Middleton also had 5 steals in Game 7. I saw that stat somewhere. So I just think Chris Middleton was the catalyst in this series. While Giannis did play exceptional during the majority of it, I know he scored 40, I think, in Game 7. Chris Middleton really was that one to push him over the edge. I know a lot of people are coming after the head of Mike Budenholzer, the coach for the Bucks, but I think some credit needs to be shown on him. He was a resilient coach, and just like Ty Lue, he's not one of my favorite coaches in the league, but Budenholzer definitely, I think, saved his job winning this series win, and the Bucks make it further than they have in a long time. The last time Budenholzer was here was back in 2015 when the Hawks made it, and obviously the Hawks got swept in the conference finals by a very powerful Cavs team, a team where JR scored like 27 points in Game 3 and routed them out of the building or something like that. But yeah, this was a great series. I just wish they played more of their guys. I wish Thanasis got some looks, especially with his ability on defense. If he could just play 5 minutes and just play really good defense, or 7 minutes, 8 minutes. I think that really was the issue. Why we saw, KD was just tired. That's why he made the bad decision to shoot a fadeaway 3 with 13 when he had 13 seconds left and could have called a timeout. I know a lot of people are coming after the head for Steve Nash for not calling a timeout. Well, it's a player's game. If KD was confident, if KD felt like he needed to call a timeout, he would have. There's a lot of players that have done it there, but KD went for the win. And while it probably wasn't the best decision, and his shot selection definitely wasn't the best decision, it's just how it rolls. That's why you don't play a player the entire game. It's
And that
not
was the
only
second
fatigue.
time. Or am I missing?
Yes, it was his series. He had played the entire game. However, it was more than an entire game because he played 53 minutes because there was also OT. And you have to play other players. The fact that they played Nicholas Claxton in Game 7 1 second infuriates me. Nicholas Claxton is a very talented player. And if they're not going to use him, I hope another team does because he's exceptional. You can't play any player that long because mental fatigue will set in. A player who's very and generally great-minded and very intelligent like KD is will have a mental lapse and it'll cost you a series. I wouldn't be playing players as much. Not only is he not only does he have injury history, as he missed the majority of the 2014 season with an injury, he missed obviously he missed the finals in 2019. You can't be playing a player that long. I know he played very well, but you can't do it. You should have confidence in your bench, and obviously the Nets didn't.
Also, Harden was playing pretty heavy minutes. Did he play most of the game, or did he get a few minutes of rest in Game 7?
I do believe that he played the majority of the game, but I also know that he did not play well. He shot terribly. I remember my dad talking to me, is like, this guy is just not the same. Did he leave himself in Houston? Obviously, that's a joke, but it did seem like that. Harden, his only real shot he made in the end of Game 7, he hit that bank lucky
Oh,
3.
yeah.
But that's not Harden. Harden's not the guy you look at and be like, oh, he's only going to make those bank lucky threes. No, he only averaged like 11 points. I think 10.8 points for the series or something like that. Some crazy number that's not James Harden-esque.
He he looked closer to Harden in Game 7, but that's still a long way because Game 5 he was not. You could tell he was rushing in because of the injury to Kyrie.
Yeah, and the only thing I disagree. Harden only looked like Harden because he had a lot of free throws attempts in Game 7. He went 10 of 10 from the line, but he also, Kevin, shot 5 of 17 from the field in Game 7.
Yeah, he definitely wasn't close, but he was definitely driving more, which is hard what he usually does when he's healthy. And I think the stat that I heard was he only did averaged or combined as Game 5 and Game 6. He only drove maybe twice, and then in Game 7 he drove 5 times towards the rim. So he was definitely getting. He looked better, but there was still a way to go before he was Harden. Harden when healthy. To your point,
Yeah, another crazy thing is that Middleton played 2 more minutes per game than Giannis. Middleton played 42.1, which I don't believe he should be playing that much. Harden, not Harden, but Giannis played 40.1 minutes per game. KD played 42.7, which led the series in minutes per game. It's just crazy how much they play these players. And then everybody gets surprised when they get hurt. Oh, how did that star player get hurt? Well, he was playing 42 minutes per game. That's what happens. It's sad to see. I know I'm kind of getting off track. The Bucks played amazing. The Nets were very close. It was a very close series throughout. But the Bucks got it done, and credit to them for pulling through and moving on to the Eastern Conference Finals.
yeah. And you mentioned, I think now is a good time to transition to the final one, and this probably has the most consequences for Philly. I don't think we'll see much change in the Nets after their loss. Don't see much change with the Jazz either. Nuggets, they just had injuries. So this is Doc Rivers' fourth straight Game 7 loss. And last year was the more infamous, I would say, Game 7 loss um, that got him fired. And then you're seeing how the Clippers are doing with the new coach. And then Ben Simmons is the thing to keep an eye on. But Tobias Harris, I'm curious. Some of the shots, like there were layups and there were floaters that just hit the back of the rim, and that wasn't well. And then, but just a great job from Atlanta. And it really goes to talk about the change they made with firing Lloyd Pierce in the middle of the season and having Nate McMillan as interim coach. But I'm curious what your thoughts are about the series.
What a series! What a series! One of the most entertaining series I've watched in a very long time. I was really impressed by what the Hawks did, and I'm more impressed how they did when Trae Young played terrible. Trae Young was so bad offensively for the majority of last night. He shot 5 of 23 from the field. It is exceptional how bad he shot. However, everybody stepped up. Everybody stepped up.
Kevin
And that's
Herter.
the true. Yeah, I was about to get to that, but everybody, like I said, stepped up. You see the true nature of a team when their best player plays their worst game and they still win. That is the difference between those Cavs teams with LeBron. If LeBron played bad, they lost. When Curry played bad on those 15-16 Warriors, they won most of those games. And that's really what we're seeing with the Hawks right now. How deep is your team? And you really see that when your best player plays his worst. I'm not saying Trae Young was terrible, but 5 of 23 from the field, 2 of 11 from 3 isn't great. John Collins played exceptional. John Collins only attempted 6 shots. They really should get him some more looks. He missed his only 3-point attempts, made all his free throws and shot. And had 14 points, 16 rebounds. He really can grab the rock. Clint Capella, 6 of 8 from the field. Didn't get as many boards because that's more of a John Collins thing right now, but he did have 13 points. Kevin Herter, 10 of 18 from the field, 27 points. Danilo Gallinari, 6 of 13 from the field, 17 points. Another veteran guy who's been there before. Onyeka, the rookie, didn't play much minutes, but played well defensively, very well defensively. Lou Williams, 2 for 4 from the field, 6 points in only 11 minutes. And then Solomon Hill, the only player on the Hawks who's made it to the finals before. He made it to the finals last year with the Heat also. Played 5 minutes, only 5 minutes, but that's just what you got to do to rest your players. I don't understand why teams don't do it like the Hawks do. I do believe Tony Snell should have played. I believe they should get Chris Dunn into it a little bit more. However, every player on their team besides Bogdan and Clint Capella had a plus-plus-minus. Every player that played besides Bogdan, who was riddled with injuries and shot 2 of 8 and also had a poor game, and Clint Capella, who I think was also paired with most of the minutes with Bogdan, but Clint Capella was only -2. It's just impressive. Onyeka, when he was on the court for only those 15 minutes, was +9. And then you go to the other side. Ben Simmons was +1. But then you go Joel Embiid -2, Tobias -6, George Hill -15, Matisse -10. It's really the bench difference. Whenever the 76ers put their bench out, it just wasn't turning out well. Seth Curry was really trying to save them, but he wasn't on the court for enough time, I believe. Dwight Howard got that flagrant foul, and that really put him at a disadvantage. I do believe that Anthony Tolliver should have got a look. He's a player who's older that they signed that for some reason they're just deciding not to play. It's weird because they sign these guys and then they don't play them. Like, why are you paying this veteran player money to sit on your bench, especially in the minutes where they could be playing over some rookies who aren't as experienced? It's not like Anthony Tolliver's never been to the playoffs before. It's questionable decisions by Doc Rivers that I do not personally understand. And it's gonna cost him. Anthony Tolliver played 2 minutes the entire playoffs. One game, 2 minutes the entire playoffs. It's crazy. And I do think Doc Rivers is gonna have to answer. I'm surprised that it went this way, but if I was the 76ers, he'd be on a thin leash. And that's the same thing that has to go with Ben Simmons. He looks scared. Am I wrong?
Yeah, when he lacks confidence, when he gave up that dunk and he just passed it to Tobias Harris, that was just shocking. And like, people talk about the free throws, jump shots. His rookie year, he took a lot of jump shots. He didn't make all of them, but he still took them. And that was my question for you was gonna be, who has the better trade value out of these three players? Ben Simmons, Kristaps, or CJ McCollum? Because people are talking about CJ with the Trailblazers.
Easily CJ McCollum. Easily. Not even close. People are really hating on CJ McCollum like he wasn't a big reason why they made it to the conference finals back in 2019. It really surprises me. If we look at the stats during that playoff run, it was more of a CJ McCollum show than it was a Dame show. CJ McCollum in the 2019 playoffs averaged 24.7%. I mean, not 24.7%, 24.7 points per game. He was a catalyst for that team who made it that far. The year before that, he averaged 25 points per game and 50% from field goal. It's crazy. I know he didn't play particularly well, but he still shot 44% from the field and averaged 21 points. And while Dame did play out of his mind, Dame's not known in my eyes for that. Damian Lillard is not the biggest playoff performer when it comes to the later parts of the playoffs. If we go back to the Western Conference Finals that he played in, he didn't play particularly great. I know he averaged insane these playoffs, and I don't know how he played as well as he did. It's insane. I've never seen a player shoot like he shot, except for Curry. That's the only person I can really compare him to, but Curry doesn't shoot like that in the playoffs most times. So it's insane. Dame only averaged, to my point, 22 points during the Western Conference Finals. He shot 37% from the field and 37% from three. And so when you get to those deeper parts of the playoffs, I don't know if that's just because of the experience of the Warriors or what have you. But CJ during that series averaged 22 points also, 39% from the field, 35% from three, 36 if you round, but it's 35.5, so I'm just going to leave it there. And those players basically played the same. And so, and while I won't say that Dame is the same as CJ, Dame's obviously better than CJ, but when you get further into the playoffs, it doesn't seem like Dame shows up enough. And I do think that's because there's a lack of content. Normally need more data points than just one deep run. But if you look at that game 7 versus the Spurs, versus the Nuggets. So there's a game 7 between the Nuggets and the Spurs. The Nuggets won, and then the Nuggets went to a game 7 versus Portland, and CJ was that guy. In that series, in the second round, he averaged 26 points per game. And if I go to that series by itself and I go to the game 7, it was CJ. In a 4-point game, CJ had 37 points. 37. You know how many Dame had? 13.
Let me guess.
You weren't going to get it.
I was going to say 31. Yeah, I wasn't going to get it.
13.
Isn't that the same run as 2019?
It's the same run, yeah. It's second round.
Okay, gotcha.
In
In
a game 7. Oh, what were you saying?
I remember Seth Curry was on that team, and if Sixers went to the conference finals with Seth Curry, I was going to go, okay, so if Seth Curry's not on the Mavs, he's going to make it to a conference finals. But what were you going to say?
Well, just that, like I said, Dame shot 3 of 17 from the field. 17%. 13 points, 10 rebounds, 8 assists. They won that game because of CJ. CJ also had 9 rebounds, 37 points, 17 of 29 from the field, 58.6%. It's crazy.
Yep, it is. And it's going to be interesting to see how the Sixers do that. As of right now, Doc Rivers has said from Woj that Simmons is going to work on his jump shot as he will not be joining Australia in the Olympics for the team because he's going to be working on his jump shot, which is an interesting thing. And I'm very interested in what they do. As I'm pulling up the quotes about Ben Simmons from Doc Rivers. Doc Rivers said Monday that Ben Simmons is prepared to do the work to fix his shot this summer and that the Sixers have the plan to do it. Maybe they're trying to increase trade value. I don't, it's going to be interesting. I'm not sure if CJ gets moved, but that's what the Trailblazers are apparently doing because they look like they're going to be making moves. I don't know if trading CJ is the answer. And then you have the possible idea of trading KP, and now you have possible trade of Ben Simmons. It will be an interesting thing to watch, and I definitely agree. Rivers next season is going to be on the hot seat because of how he is not done in the playoffs recently for the Sixers and for the Clippers last year. And then just to brief over the conference finals, I kind of like people are complaining how it will affect the NBA business wise with not having LeBron, KD, and in the conference finals. I kind of like it. We're getting to see the new generation, and we're seeing the Clippers make it for the first time ever. And then it would be interesting to see. So Clippers versus Suns. Any quick thoughts, Austin?
It's going to come down to the health of both of their stars. How many games can Kawhi play? How many games can Chris Paul play? And that's really going to determine the series. I obviously had the Clippers winning, but with Kawhi out, I'm going to stick with my prediction just so I can see if I'm going to be right or not. However, I do think the Suns have an edge, not only because they won game 1, but because I think Chris Paul will make it back before Kawhi. So it's going to be a good series. I definitely anticipate it to go at least 6 games, but it's going to come down to the health of both teams.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting how the Suns deal with the Clippers staying small. Aiden seems to be doing a better job as of right now of dealing with that than Rudy Gobert did, and I'm thinking you mentioned Chris Paul, but Devin Booker I think is going to be a key part. And as for right now, if the Nets had made it, I'd probably say they have the best backcourt duo if Kyrie and Harden, if they were healthy. But I think left right now, Suns have the best backcourt duo if when Chris Paul returns. And then any thoughts on that statement or?
I mean, that's probably true. There's no one really left that's proved themselves to be better. So yeah, I mean, I would agree with that.
And then it would be interesting for the Nets if they still had Harden and Kyrie and if they had made it. And then now we got Bucks versus Hawks. This one is going to be very interesting because that Bucks offense looked it looked like me playing 2K. Like you just have ISO, and then hope for a green light or something.
You don't call plays?
No, I do pick and roll. Does that count or no?
I mean, the Bucks do that too, so I guess that makes it seem even more like you. But
yeah,
it's going to be an interesting series. Both teams have. It's been a while since either team has made the finals. The Bucks won the finals back in 1971. The Hawks back in 1958. So it's been a while.
yeah. I it could go either way, but I think it's going to be closer, 6 or 7 games. I know a lot of people are saying 5 or 4. Five. Most people are saying 5. I haven't heard 4 a sweep, but I just think the Hawks are really doing well, and they've taken advantage of some mistakes made by other teams, like the Sixers. So should be interesting. We'll talk about it when we review the conference finals and preview the finals. Make sure to check out our interviews and check out our predictions, as it's looking like my playoff predictions are leaning more to the side of my NBA division or NBA playoff predictions, the way too early, where I've kind of faltered very badly. So it will be interesting. Speaking of predictions, we will check out the NHL division predictions. We had to postpone that just to talk about NBA. And we will give that to you next time as we look back at our way too early predictions. So make sure to check that out. Thank you for listening to Outsiders Opinions.